Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Cotonou. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide at wadr.org. First, the top stories. The Nigerian Senate passes amendment bill seeking creation of state police.
Many states in Nigeria have established vigilance services, but do you know why they are not effective? It's simply because the constitution prohibits them from holding light arms.
Ivorian opposition denounces proposed reform to establish a new electoral commission, describes the decision as unilateral. World Church Organization raises concern over Niger's withdrawal from the ICC.
If the decision of getting away from the ICC is to protect themselves as authorities, then all the non-state arms groups will also be exempted from judicial proceedings.
Benin's President Wadani arrives in Brussels for crucial meeting with EU on trade and investment. Please stay tuned for the details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Veronique Joy.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. The Nigerian Senate has passed a constitutional amendment bill seeking to establish state police amid a rising wave of kidnapping, banditry, insurgency, and security threats. The bill was passed by 2/3 and 109 of the senators barely a day after President Bola Ahmed Tinubu transmitted the proposal to the upper chamber. But amid the development, there are also concerns. Our correspondent in Abuja, Yeche Nusasi, filed this report.
Plus means yes. Affirmation. 0.
Presenting the general principles of the bill, Deputy Senate President Barau Jibrin said the proposal is aimed at strengthening security and bringing policing closer to the people.
The report of the Committee on Constitutional Review on the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria Alteration Bill 2026 SB 1055. I so move. Senate.
The bill seeks to establish a dual policing system that will allow state police services to operate alongside the Federal Police Service. Governor Ubasani of Kaduna, whose state is affected by banditry, described the passage as crucial to addressing insecurity at the grassroots.
As we are speaking, many states in Nigeria have established vigilance services, but do you know why they are not effective? It's simply because the constitution prohibits them from holding light arms. They can only use firm action, meaning when you send them to go and protect the lives and properties of the people, you are sending them to death. Tell most of the people that are worried about the abuse, let's try it. There's room for amendments.
The bill provides for state governors to appoint commissioners of police, subject to confirmation by the state houses of assembly. It also proposes safeguards against the use of state police to harass political opponents, journalists, activists, and other citizens. Concerns already highlighted by several rights groups, including Amnesty International. Fears remain over possible political interference, funding, and coordination between federal and state security agencies. The legislation will, in the meantime, be transmitted to the 36 state houses of assembly, where it must receive the approval of at least 2/3 before it can return to the National Assembly and be forwarded to the President for assent. For WADR, Yeche Nusasi in Abuja.
Mali and Guinea have stepped up efforts to strengthen border security, with military officials from both countries meeting in Conakry for a new session of their joint military commission. The talks, which opened this week, focus on intelligence sharing, operational coordination, and strategies to combat terrorism and cross-border crime. Christopher Teacher tells us more.
Military leaders from two neighboring countries will discuss ways to improve communication between their respective headquarters, enhance information exchange, and coordinate response to security threats along their shared border. The meeting in Conakry builds on commitments made during the Commission's first session held in Bamako last year. Officials at the conference agreed to strengthen joint patrols and deepen military cooperation, a decision based on necessity as insecurity spreads in the region. Mali continues to face attacks by armed groups, while Guinea has recently reported arrest of individuals suspected of links to terrorist networks in areas bordering the Sahel. Several arrests were reported in prefectures of Seguiri, Madjiana, and Kankan in the northeast of the country, an area important for trade with Mali and for mining activities. Beyond security, both countries are also seeking to protect key trade and transport corridors that support movement of goods between the port of Conakry and landlocked Mali. Recall that in January, Bamako approved the allocation to Guinea of a 10-hectare land reserve intended to support infrastructure related to storage and transportation. Officials say the outcome of the talks is expected to pave the way for stronger military collaboration and improve border management between the two neighboring countries.
That was Christopher Aticho with that report. The government of Burkina Faso has rejected a recent European Parliament resolution criticizing the country's freedom and civic space. In a note verbal sent to the European Union delegation in Ouagadougou, authorities described the resolution as unacceptable interference in its internal affairs. The resolution adopted on June 18th comes days after Burkinabe Foreign Minister Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré summoned the EU ambassador to Burkina Faso, Philippe Brochain, to express the government's dissatisfaction with the resolution. Sankule Janko has more.
According to Burkinabe authorities, the European Parliament failed to recognize the country's efforts in combating terrorism and restoring security amid ongoing challenges across the Sahel region. The government also argues that the security crisis in the region stems from the 2011 NATO intervention in Libya, which it says continues to have destabilizing effects across the Sahel. Ouagadougou highlights what it describes as the significant gains made by the defense and security forces and the volunteers for the defense of the homeland in the fight against terrorism and the reconquest of territory. While reaffirming its commitment to dialogue with the European Union, Burkina Faso insists that relations must be based on mutual respect and free from what it calls condescension and prejudgment. The government declared the European Parliament resolution null and void and vowed to continue its policies aimed at territorial reconquest, state reform, and the protection of national interests. European Union Ambassador Philippe Brochain said he had taken note of the concerns raised by the Burkinabe authorities and would convey them to the appropriate institutions of the European Union.
Sankule Janko with that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In neighboring Niger, the World Organization Against Torture, OMCT, has reacted to the authorities' decision to withdraw from the International Criminal Court, ICC. Niamey has already formally notified the court, but the withdrawal will only take effect after 1 year. In the meantime, the OMCT is warning of possible human rights violations in the country. Isadore Nguelu is a senior advisor for Africa at the World Organization Against Torture.
I think that's the principle of military power. No, it is to disregard democratic oversight from parliament, democratic oversight from judiciary, and even democratic oversight from the population and other civil society organizations. So we are deeply in that context where no other body can look at it and can get them accountable. But it's important to remind that the International Criminal Court is one of these courts that is not only looking at people holding power. Their mandate is to hold accountable every individual, no matter the position they hold in a situation, in a country or in a community that are committing grave human rights violations. So that means, for example, that it's if the decision of getting away from the ICC is to protect themselves as authorities, then let also those who are not authorities, those who are criminals, to be unpunished. All the criminals, the terrorists, and all the non-state arms groups that are operating and that are killing will also be exempted from judicial proceedings because the country has decided to remove itself from the authority of the ICC. So this is a double sword decision that maybe is a protection mechanism for the military authorities, but also it leaves space for all other criminals to be able to act in full impunity.
That was Isidore Nguelu, Senior Advisor for Africa at the World Organization Against Torture. Still in Niger, the United Nations has once again described the detention of Musa Changari as arbitrary and has called for the release of the human rights activist. In a report published 2 days ago, the organization urged the authorities in Niamey to respect international law. The United Nations position has been welcomed by supporters of Musa Changari, who has been in prison since December 2024 on alleged terrorism-related charges. Abdullah Hassan tells us more.
According to the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, Musa Changari should be released. In a 12-page report published on Tuesday, UN experts criticized the arrest and detention of Secretary General of the NGO Alternative Espace Citoyen. The report states that the Nigerian authorities failed to comply with international law in handling the case. As a result, the UN is calling on Niamey to immediately release the human rights activist. The position has been welcomed by his supporters. Mamankaka Tuda is a member of the NGO.
We are fully in solidarity with this press release, especially since these are globally recognized organizations in the field of defending and protecting human rights defenders. We truly welcome this statement, which calls on the authorities to take all necessary measures to secure the release of human rights defender. He is someone who is very strong in spirit and shows no sign of weakness whatsoever. He is a very calm and composed person. That being said, he has a wife, children, parents, friends, and acquaintances behind him. It is more for them that we are concerned. But I believe that regarding Musa Changari, we have no doubts about him personally.
For the record, Musa Changari was arrested on December 3, 2024 and is currently being held at Filink prison. He faces charges including glorification of terrorism, undermining state security, and threatening national defense.
That report was filed by Abdullah Hassan. Let's turn our attention to Côte d'Ivoire, where debate is heating up over proposed reforms to establish the new electoral commission following the dissolution of the existing institution. The new structure, presented by Prime Minister Robert Bermambe, has drawn mixed reactions, while the ruling RHDP party welcomes it as a boost to electoral transparency. The opposition, PPACI, condemns it as a unilateral move and warns it could amount to an attempt to control the electoral process. Usman Umar has more in this report.
Meeting in an extraordinary session on June 23rd, the Secretariat of the RHDP welcomed what it described as a historic reform. The ruling party says the initiative reflects President Alassane Ouattara's commitment to equipping Côte d'Ivoire with a modern, credible and transparent electoral system. The RHDP believes the new structure of the Independent Electoral Commission will strengthen public trust and consolidate the democratic process. It is calling on all political actors to support the reform. However, the opposition PPACI does not share this view. Reacting to its absence from the presentation of the proposal, party official Fabrice Lago condemned what he considered a lack of genuine consultation. He said the meeting amounted to a simple government briefing with no opportunity for meaningful dialogue with opposition representatives. For political analyst Nuruddin Oyeole, the PPACI would be better served by taking part in the discussion in order to help improve the electoral system and strengthen trust between political actors. Despite ongoing controversy over the new electoral system presented earlier this week by the Ivorian Prime Minister, the proposal is expected to be submitted to Parliament for adoption in the coming days.
That was a report by our correspondent in Abidjan, Marcel Avilison Blay, and voiced by Usman Umar. On the diplomatic front, Benin's President Romuald Wadani is in Europe for an official visit. He made his first stop in Brussels on Wednesday and visited the European Council headquarters. The trip is part of efforts to strengthen relations between Benin and the European Union. Let's join Imo Edit for more details.
President Romuald Wadani began his first official visit to EU with talks in Brussels aimed at strengthening ties with the European Union. Upon his arrival in the Belgian capital on Wednesday, Wadr met with European Council President Antonio Costa for discussions on the future of cooperation between Benin and the EU. The talks focus on key issues including political dialogue, economic cooperation, security challenges in West Africa, and opportunities for increased European investment in Benin. Both sides also exchange views on regional challenges requiring closer international coordination. The visit comes as Benin seeks to deepen diplomatic and economic relations with its traditional partners while attracting greater investment to support its national development priorities. By choosing Brussels for his first official European trip, President Wadr underscored the strategic importance of the European Union in Benin's foreign policy. The EU remains one of Benin's leading economic and financial partners, supporting projects in infrastructure, security, education and governance. Officials say the meeting could pave the way for new joint initiatives in areas such as sustainable development, regional stability and economic integration.
That was a report by our Cotonou correspondent Aziz Adam Souley, voiced by Imo Edit. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. Here's a reminder of our top stories. The Nigerian Senate passes amendment bill seeking creation of state police. Ivorian opposition denounces proposed reforms to establish a new electoral commission, describes the decision as unilateral. World Touch Organization raises concern over Niger's withdrawal from the ICC, and Benin's President Wadr arrives in Brussels for crucial meeting with EU on trade and investment. Still ahead in the news, we have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Thank you for staying with us. Ghana's Narcotics Control Commission has arrested the alleged ringleader of a drug trafficking network linked to the seizure of about 320 kilograms of methamphetamine concealed in a charcoal shipment. The drug departed from Ghana and was intercepted in Australia. From Accra, Nadide Tete reports.
The Narcotics Control Commission, NACOG, has described the arrest as a major breakthrough in investigations launched after Australian authorities announced on June 19 that it had intercepted the consignment valued at nearly 300 million Australian dollars before it could reach the country's illicit drug market. According to NACOG, the suspect was arrested following a 3-month intelligence-led operation involving the Commission and other national security agencies. Director of Public Affairs and International Relations at NACOG, PNCO Francis Opoku-Amoah, says the Commission is working closely with local and international partners to identify and arrest everyone connected to the trafficking network.
The investigation is ongoing. It is likely that more arrests could follow this very first arrest that was made.
Meanwhile, NACOG has destroyed more than 9.6 tons of seized narcotic drugs under a court-approved process. The Commission says it is also intensifying public education campaigns to discourage drug abuse, particularly among young people, while calling on the media to support the fight against narcotics through sustained public awareness. For WADR, Nadide Tete, Accra.
That was Nadide with that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
For the newspaper review this afternoon, Nadide Tete reports from Accra.
To start off with the Daily Graphic newspaper front page, Justice Tokonu loses case at ECOWAS court. So the former Chief Justice Gertrude Arabai-Saba Tokonu was in the ECOWAS court challenging her removal from office as Chief Justice. Well, the ECOWAS court's decision came out yesterday and it's dismissed the case of our former Chief Justice Gertrude Arabai-Saba Saki Tokonu. Other stories here. Lead suspect in Australia, 320 kilogram meth shipment arrested in Accra. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, Nation records 15,290 new HIV infections and experts are calling for action. Other stories here. Narcotics Control Commission, NACOG, destroys narcotic drugs worth 37 million Ghana cedis. The Overseer newspaper front page, ECOWAS court throws out Tokonu's challenge against Ghana. Also here, NACOG arrests key suspect in 296 million Ghana Australia meth case. The Dispatch newspaper newspaper now. What Ghana Thought the World in 90 Minutes. The Psychology of Ghana England Draw. Also here, police arrest 186 suspects in the Ashanti region. And for the NPP to win, unity in the party is not negotiable. That's according to a national chairman hopeful of the opposition New Patriotic Party's upcoming national executive elections, Paul Afoko. And that's how we wrap up the newspaper review segment. Is back to you in the studio.
Many thanks to Nadide Tete for the press review from Accra.
Politics,
Analyses on major news,
social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
For our guest interview this afternoon, we focus on Nigeria, where conversations are ongoing regarding the passage of a constitutional amendment bill seeking to establish state police. Major concerns are growing over possible political interference, funding and coordination between federal police and state security agencies. To unpack or help us unpack the issue, Olumayowa Olaniyi, a security analyst, joins us with his analysis. He spoke in an interview with our correspondent in Abuja, Yechenu Sasitu.
Security reform process in Nigeria is deeper than just creating of state police. I think it's important for all of us to understand that security reform process will continue nonetheless. In fact, this is the time that the reform process means so much in terms of providing the needed safety for Nigerians. Our state government has now a big responsibility to ensure that their structure or whatever is created, the state police created, will do exactly what it's supposed to do and not be used as any tool against some perceived enemies within their states at the subnational and of course at the federal level.
Now, do you believe creating state police will significantly reduce insecurity, or are there deeper issues the government must address alongside?
I personally do not think that the cause of the insecurity that we have in the country is the police or the federal police or the concentration or centralization of the police structure. I don't think that's the reason why we have insecurity. So if we do not deal with some of the underlying factors that we have, this insecurity would continue. Will it have effect on it? Absolutely. We hope that the creation of state police would help address some challenges, but nonetheless, it's not in itself the final solution to all of the insecurity crisis that we have, because we know that some of the reasons, one of the critical reason for the security challenge or challenges that we have is a governance issue. And so if it is a governance issue, you cannot use the creation of a subnational police or state police to solve a governance, something that is really tied to socioeconomic realities. You cannot use the police to solve it.
So what safeguards should be put in place to prevent state governors from using state police for political purposes?
If we go by what we are seeing outside, I mean the alteration bill which has been passed, I think the fear should not really be about the states alone. We should also be afraid of the central or the center. What do I mean by that? In the alteration bill, which has just been passed, what we've seen is some level of safeguards that the bill has provided for. But these safeguards too has given undue power, unnecessary power to the federal government. And of course, these in itself can be a source of very disturbing, worrisome trouble in the near future. So for instance, the parameters for takeover, if it is seen that a particular state police is not willing or does not have the capability to contain a particular problem, the federal government or the federal police is expected to take over that state police. I think that's very dangerous. It's dangerous in the sense that the law, as it says, did not define what unwillingness is and did not define capability. At what point? What's the threshold? What's the measure? At what point does it become a problem? At what point does it become something that would enhance or that will force the Federal Police Service to come to the aid of the members of that state? I think that in itself signals a very serious struggle. While these are measures incorporated to help reduce the overreach of state governors, I think we are not also creating another overreach for the federal government or for the president when the president has the power or the federal government has the power to switch on or to switch off police structure at subnational level.
That was our guest interview segment with Olumayowa Olaniyi, a security analyst in Nigeria, speaking to our correspondent Yechenu Sasitu in Abuja. All right, it's time for some sports news. The World Cup is on. There's so much to talk about. But before we begin talking about what is happening at the World Cup, this is also happening at the World Cup or on the pitch. Sankule Janko is here, and we will first off start with some comments that was made by former German international Sankule.
Yes, indeed, right. Vero, former German international Bastian Schweinsteiger is facing the criticism after describing Ivory Coast's style of play as wild and unorthodox during the World Cup coverage on German television. Well, the remarks have sparked backlash from fans and pundits who say they reinforce harmful stereotypes about African football. But the controversy has also stirred wider debate, with former Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp declining to comment when he was asked about this issue during an interview.
Sankule, now let's focus on the pitch. Moroccans are celebrating at the moment.
Yes, indeed they are because Morocco booked their place in the knockout stage after coming from behind twice to beat Haiti 4-2 in their final Group C match in Atalanta. Well, the Atlas Lions recovered from an early own goal by Yassin Borno, with Ashraf Hakimi and Ismail Sabari bringing them level before second half strikes from Soufiane Rahimi and Yassin Goussimi sealed the win. Now Morocco will now face the winners of Group F next Monday in Monterrey, Mexico, in the round of 32.
But Morocco is not the only country celebrating in Group C, Sankule.
Yes, indeed they are not, because Brazil finished top of group on the difference after convincing 3-0 win over Scotland in Miami. And now, after their victory, Vinicius Junior scored twice to take his tally to 4 goals. Now they're ahead of Morocco with goal difference.
Now let's look at the unexpected win yesterday that sealed it for South Africa.
Unexpected, he says. Well, absolutely. South Africa reached the World Cup knockout stage for the first time in the history after a hard-fought 1-0 victory over South Korea. Oldie Tapeko Maseko scored the only goal in the 63rd minute, sending Bafana into the last 32 and making history after previous group stage exits in 1998, 2002 and 2010.
Sankule, please take us through the games that happened yesterday.
And then, of course, some of the games as well. Mexico completed a preferred group stage, a perfect one campaign with a 3-0 win over Czech, while Switzerland claimed top spot in Group B after defeating co-host Canada.
Today, we look forward to more games. What are the fixtures looking like?
Yeah, certainly. In today's fixtures, Ecuador will take on Germany, while Curaçao face Côte d'Ivoire, with both matches kicking off at 8 p.m. Later at 11 p.m, Tunisia will battle with Netherlands, while Japan go up against Sweden.
Thank you very much, Sankule Janko, for that very detailed sports news. And yes, that's how we end it here on West Africa Democracy Radio Newslink, the second edition. And thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Maudoju for the technical assistance. I am Veronique Njai. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.